What's going on, everybody? This is Sean of Raw Select Music.
And this is the Super Sonido Show. I'm La Molly. This is Blue and Green Radio.
Hello and welcome along to this month's edition of the Music for Modern Living radio show, right here on Blue and Green Radio. You're locked in with me, Nigel Gentry.
Confessions
of a Curly Mind.
Blue in Green
Radio.
You're listening to Steve Williams at uk5.org.
Welcome to the Blue and Green sessions.
Ride the vibe with DJ Ronnie Ron.
Twisted Souls.
You're listening to the Blue and Green podcast, and I hope you enjoy what we are going to say.
blueandgreenradio.com.
Welcome, friends. You're listening to another episode of the Blue in Green podcast. My name's Imran. Thank you very much for your company. I hope you're going to enjoy the show today. Firstly, the Blue in Green podcast runs in conjunction with Blue in Green Radio. You can find us at www.blueingreenradio.com. We're a 21st century soul, jazz, funk, Latin, hip-hop, broken beat radio station. We celebrate those genres, and we're, as we said, London-based, but incredibly fortunate to be able to host shows, exclusive shows from the States, from Australia, from London and Japan. We all get together with a singular focus of, as we said, celebrating the music that we just love. And that's also been the reason for the podcast coming into the world. Today's show is incredibly special. The podcast has been running at the time of this recording. It's been going for about 11 months. We started it in January 2019, and when I put like a dream team list of people I wanted to feature, people I wanted to talk to for one of these shows, our guest today was quite high up, and it was Sean Khan. And I'm still pinching myself that we actually got the time that he made the time to talk to me. And we had a very, very cool conversation, and I'm really excited about you guys hearing it. If the name firstly is unfamiliar to you, Sean Khan is one of the leaders, I would say, of contemporary jazz in London, in the UK. He has, again, at the time of this recording, there are 3 solo albums you absolutely must get your hands on. He's also a part of the SK Radicals, which were a mid-late 90s broken beat collective, and they had some stunning releases, and we get to talk everything in this episode with Sean. We spend a lot of time on the kind of the broken beat era and the SK Radical era, which I had questions about it, but I guess I didn't really think we'd spend as much time on it. So it was a real pleasure that he was so open about reminiscing about those times. So that was really exciting, and mentioning names and talking about people like Katie Tatham and Bugs in the Attic and Daz IQ, and it was just really exciting. And we talk about his solo releases, and we talk about, most importantly, his brand new EP, Distant Voice, 4-track EP, which came out through BBE Records, his new label home, which is very exciting. It's a great combination. So we're really excited about that project because it's stunning, and future projects with BBE Records. So not much else to say. I hope you enjoy this. It's a very candid, it's a very frank conversation. I'm incredibly grateful for his candor, I hope he enjoyed it. I think he did. I think he enjoyed it as much as, well, probably not as much as me, but I really, really enjoyed it. He's a real hero. It meant a lot that he took the time. But he took the time on the eve of the EP's release as well. It's literally the night before its release. So that was super cool. Regular listeners of these podcasts will know that we have 2 songs featured on these podcasts. Our guest, in this case obviously Sean Khan, gets to pick our closing number, but I have the luxury of picking the opening one. And firstly, it would be incredibly rude and unjust, inappropriate not to feature something from the amazing new Distant Voice EP. And as I said, it's a 4-track project, and it's so good, it's so unbelievably good, and it's a great introduction. As we said, should you not know who Sean Khan is, now I'd urge you to get your hands on this, and then it's going to force you to want to go back through that stunning catalogue. But I'm going to go with the opener, Feel the Light, wonderful song. So I hope you enjoy it. And I say 2 songs are featured on each episode. Sean Khan plays a bit of flute in our conversation, which is probably the best moment of these podcasts ever. So we kind of technically have 3 songs on the episode today. But I want to thank him very much for being a part. I really hope we can connect and talk again. And I had no doubt, thank you guys, no doubt believe you will enjoy this episode. So once again, this is the Blue in Green podcast. Please visit us at www.blueingreenradio.com, where you can find the complete list of podcast episodes as well as our radio stream. And we'd love for you to check us out. So thanks very much, friends. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Sean Khan.
always up for talking. I talk too much sometimes. That's a
Well,
problem.
I'll put that to the test.
All right, let's go, mate.
Well, thanks very much. Firstly, it's such an unsociable hour on a Thursday night, so I really appreciate you taking the time, dude.
Nah, it's all good. It's all good. Listen, I've just stopped teaching, man. This is.
Oh
my
wow!
life.
Oh,
Sorry.
where do you teach? Where do you teach?
I teach in Tower Hamlets, and then I teach in Notting Hill Gate, just by Grenfell. You know the Grenfell Tower?
Oh wow! Yeah, of course. Yeah.
A little plug for the music school I help run and co-manage. I just want to give a little plug. Is that all right?
Absolutely. Please do. Yeah.
Well, I run it with my dear friend, co-manage it with Ernest Allen, and it's called the Notting Hill Gate Music Academy, and we're up by Grenfell. A lot of the Grenfell kids who go there, who were affected by that massive tragedy.
Yeah,
tragic,
absolutely.
crazy thing, you know.
Wow, yeah, of course. I had no idea. That's fascinating. That's really interesting. Congratulations.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Oh, 5 years. Been running that
Wow.
place for 5 years with my dear friend. Yeah.
What is that kind of that? What drove you to teaching, if I may ask? What inspired that?
Listen, we need to. I mean, look, I enjoy teaching. For a start because I like kids. You know, I do enjoy their energy. What music, the music business. I don't enjoy the music business. I don't like all the characters in there because they lack transparency. Kids are generally transparent, especially if they're well brought up. And you meet aspirational parents who want their kids to learn about art and all this kind of caper. And a lot of the parents around that area are really into the arts, even though they come from a humble background. For me, it's quite inspiring. We've been doing it 5 years. I also teach. Obviously, I've got to earn a living because making music is a tough game. It's a really tough game, and it's really tiring. You know, it's really tiring chasing money. You know.
Well, that's amazing. Is you're finding young kids sort of with an enthusiasm for jazz specifically? Is it?
No, I do. They're very young. The kids I teach. I don't really teach much jazz, but I do in some of the secondary schools. I teach a lot. I do mainly inner city schools. I was teaching in Peckham many years, and there's a lot of talent there. But when you get asked by kids who I know are from a similar background to me about becoming a professional musician, I always immediately tell them no. Don't do it.
Gosh.
I just got to be honest. We're going to be honest, but I want a bit more truth coming out here.
Yeah.
Because everyone thinks, this game is, and it is a game because you're dealing with real weird characters. Really weird politics. So people think that it's really easy for me to make music. It's easy for me to make music. For me to get it out is a major problem. Well,
on a really positive and a super positive note, actually, I checked my dates and I knew the Distant Voice EP was due out in this month, but it's actually due out tomorrow, which is really exciting.
I only found out yesterday. I'm being so smashed out because I'm doing making another record at the moment.
Oh wow!
For BBE, which is almost complete. I'm just waiting to find another singer and maybe re-edit some drums. So that's nearly done. That new album. So that'll be out next year. So this is just so that you guys don't forget me. basically, a little present.
Do you still get? I mean, how do you tend to feel like this is, as I said, this is the eve of your new release, the Distant Voice EP. I mean, do you get excited about it? Like when music's about to come out, do you get nervous? How do you kind of tend to feel about something before it's released?
No, I tend to enjoy the process of making it more than I do about the anticipation of it coming out, because then I can't have it. I don't have any power after I finished it, and people. I'm not a gatekeeper, and that's the issue really. If I was a gatekeeper and I had access to gatekeepers, then I could go out for lunch with a couple of gatekeepers and say, look, play that for me, please, or get me a gig here, or or do this, but I haven't got that power. So for me, the beauty is in making the record and persuading people to participate in making a record with me, because I do end up working with really high-end musicians.
Yeah.
Because I'm such a hustler, and I try to write music that I enjoy, that hopefully they'll enjoy playing. You know.
What was the kind of the process for Distant Voice? I had noticed on your Facebook page that it had been coming for quite a few months now, which is really exciting. And what was the kind of process for it all coming together?
Well, the process was, my daughter lives in Porto,
Oh, wow.
and I go out there a lot, and I don't do it. I go there for her. We hang out with her a lot. She's only a little one. She's coming up to 10.
Oh, wow.
So I met another English guy who lives out there, and he as a hobby runs a few Facebook pages. So he said to me he would give me some advice about social media, because I don't really do social media, as you'll know. It's very very weak, my social media reach. Basically, because I think all the guys who began Broken Beat should be more well known than we are, but because we weren't of the social media generation, we were like a few years before that. We're sort of behind. So I told him this, and he said, look, what you should do is make a cheap or free EP and give it out for free. And I did it. I made the EP. Had a few teething problems with it, like you do. All records have teething problems. You always have an obstacle in making a record. And then managed to get it there. And then when I was looking to make another record, which wasn't looking likely under the conditions I wanted to make another record, because I'd always accepted the conditions I was given, and I wasn't prepared to accept that any longer, because the terms and conditions of making a record for me are now more important. Whereas before, I'd just make a record and not worry about the contract, which is a bit stupid. But this time, I wanted better terms and conditions, and BBE were able to offer me better terms and conditions for making a record. So I went down there, explained my vibe, what I was going to do to Peter, who runs BBE, and he agreed, and he signed me, and I also asked him to put the EP out, because I haven't got the means to put out an EP, you know. And he agreed. He agreed to put it out, and there we have it. So he signed me for an album. He's given me a budget to make an album, so I'm doing that at the moment. And he's given me decent terms and conditions. You know, hopefully it'll pan out like that. You know, I'm not expecting the world, but you know, I was, my terms and conditions were always very poor. Before I'd make a record and beg, borrow, not steal quite to make a record, but that's the position I found myself under. And Peter just said, look, you know, I like what you do. I checked your back catalogue. You know what you're doing. You got a very good reputation as a very good saxophone player. So yeah, you know, they put the Charlie Mingus record out. That's done really well. So he was up for a sort of, you know, a current contemporary jazz record after the success of the Mingus Lost album that they put out.
When you said you didn't have the sort of the means to put out like an EP, have you ever considered like the independent Bandcamp route?
Well, you know what? I'll be really honest with you. You know, this is what people don't really discuss about this whole game. You know, and it is a game. The music's different. The music is art. But then after you finish it, the game starts.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, I've tended to make a record as if I'm pretending to be on a major label, if that makes sense to you. And I've never been on a major label. I've been on a couple of labels that have really respected me, you know, and have given me money. But I know how tight that is. Like the first label that properly bankrolled me was Goya, which is the Broken Beat label.
Yeah.
and the amount of support they gave me was incredible, you know. But I have not got the means or the support network to put a record out on Bandcamp and expect it to do anything. You know, I haven't got the telephone numbers of this DJ or that DJ or that YouTube site. And you got to be realistic. I'm being realistic. I'd love to be able to put my own stuff out. I'd love to have the time to hire someone to help me run my own label, but I haven't got the skill set to do that or the knowledge. So I accept that. What my knowledge, my skill base is making music and playing. You know, and I think guys who try to do that too much, like put their own stuff out, you know, you're taking yourself away from what you should be really doing or trying to do. But I do understand why guys do that, because they do that precisely because of what I've told you, precisely because of how dodgy people are, and even on small labels. Like I spoke to a friend recently. We were talking about the major labels, how horrible some of these guys are, and about you know how you know, talk about Jacob Pastorius, man. Major labels destroyed that guy's career. You know, I mean, I know the guy had a lot of mental health issues, but I'm sure it wasn't helped by the way they behaved with the guy. You know, you know, and if a major label can just destroy a guy's career, and you know, you know, one of their executives might come to me at some point in my life and tell me I was talking out my arse, but from what I've read, they didn't back him up properly. So I said to a friend, you got majors doing that, but then mostly independents, a lot of them behave like majors with their act on a smaller scale, so to speak. So this is the reason why guys are putting their stuff out on Bandcamp, because they can't trust anybody, you know. And essentially that's what's happened with me as well. But I'm a pessimistic optimist, you know. So I will try again, because I enjoy the process of making a record. I really enjoy the process of making a record. There's so many obstacles in front of me. Even though I told you I make a record as if I'm on a major label. You know, someone told me Hermeto Pascal was interested in my saxophone playing, and I just said, look, what do I do? Do I ever get scared? This guy's worked with Miles Davis. He was arranger for Miles Davis, a lot of the stuff in the 90s. Well, not everything, but he worked on Bitches Brew and Live Evil and other stuff, you know, and Aieto. So what do? Get scared of that? No, I rise to the occasion, you know, because I know I've got ability. You know, it doesn't matter if people look. I might not win any awards or whatever, but I know plenty of great musicians who haven't had a chance to make a record, you know, because it's really difficult. But I actually enjoy the process of it for some reason. Maybe I'm some kind of bloody crazy nut who got some kind of masochist. I don't know, man. You know, because that's the way it is. You know,
it is funny how I guess the music industry has evolved, or in of itself, it's something it's had to evolve. You know, I sort of sympathize with labels to an extent, because of, I think, the MP3 generation, the streaming generation has made everything have to change its rules. And I guess those major labels, you know, have had to really, you know, unreasonably, unfairly kind of tighten their belts, and artists have sort of become you know, as much of a victim as anyone in terms of how things have evolved. And how...
I think any time when you've got artists involved, there's only been a few guys in history who are able to understand the business well and play well. You know, I know a lot of I know, luckily enough, I've been really fortunate to play with some amazing jazz musicians who some of them are quite famous. And I know the ins and outs of how they've been misled and been lied to and ripped off, etc., etc. I'm not going to name any names. But so that's always been there. Record labels will always try to get the upper hand. Yeah. And they don't need to be like that, I don't think. They don't need to be like... Now what's happened now is the model has changed, but the ripping off hasn't changed. You know, it's probably got worse in some ways because it's become an even smaller market, and younger guys are. If you're not part of the gatekeepers' little group, you're not really getting a shout. You know, and I'm lucky because I came up very fortunately through sheer luck to be part of the broken beat scene, the original broken beat scene, where there was a bit of money and we were selling records and we were able to put out albums, and that's why I've been able to put out records, etc. But this new model, if you're not able to get the social media thing going, you haven't got a chance. It doesn't matter how good your music is, you're not going to be given a chance. You know, and that's what it's sort of come down to, you know. And there again, if you start doing well with a social media thing, that's when labels will look to exploit you, you know, in a negative sense a lot of the time. You know, hey man, I'm speaking the truth here. This is my experience, you know.
Yeah, no,
I'm,
absolutely.
you know,
I think, as you say with labels, I think it's almost your social media figures will then represent your worth. You know, and the investment that they're prepared to take in you. Like, oh, he has a following. We don't. I think a lot of labels nowadays won't expect. You know, the age-old model. I think from being on the outside of it, the age-old model seemed to be that you, in your situation, you'd make the music, hand it over, and release it, and it's for them to do their part. That's not the era anymore, is it? I mean, the label are going to expect you to do as much promotion and social media stuff as, if anything, more than them, you know. So it's almost like, well, what do I need you for? I've made the music, I'm promoting the music, yet your label's got the brand on it.
I understand what you're saying. If we're having we're having a seemingly serious, honest conversation, the whole social media thing, I think, has changed the model, but I don't think it's changed it as much as people are really insinuating. That's the wrong word. I don't think it's changed the model. What's changed is the way that the product's been monetized.
Right.
If that makes any sense to you. That's what's changed. The model hasn't changed. You still make the music and you still got to hand it over to them because they have connections with the gatekeepers. And it's the gatekeepers that will determine whether or not you are going to put bread on the table. You know, you're going to make any money out of this so you can make another record and you can start to build up a career. You know, a recording career. You can have a discography. That's what the record label does. And in return for that, it wants to monetize your product. Still, you need to have a product. But as I said to you, the way it's monetized is different. But the actual model hasn't changed that drastically. You know, what's changed also, the only other thing that's changed is the generation don't really want to pay for music.
Yes.
Which is very sad.
Yeah.
In my view. You know, because I could only have a career in London. I mean, I know Portugal very well. I couldn't have a career in Portugal because it hasn't got a scene like London. There were so many different scenes when I was coming up. The jazz scene wasn't really interested in me. The broken beat scene was. You know, I've had a very strange sort of education. I'm sort of semi self-taught. I had to leave Goldsmith College where I was studying music. I couldn't afford to finish it off, and I've got a science degree, so I was able to do a postgraduate. Man, listen, I went to a terrible school. Went to an inner city school that was awful, and I didn't learn anything until I left the school. And I've always had a thirst for knowledge, and it's helped me in becoming a jazz player, because with jazz you really got to delve a bit deeper into the music. So we're going off piste here a bit, but what we're saying, having this thirst for knowledge has been the major driving force of my whole recording career. You know, because each record I've wanted to make better, so to speak. You know, be a better producer, be a better musician, play a better solo on this kind of thing. You know, etc. That was a bit of a random thing, man. I'm sorry, I'm riffing a little bit.
No, man, yeah, I'm
Just
enjoying. I've wanted to talk to you for ages, so I'm kind of really enjoying that you're being honest. And I want to be respectful of that, and I'm trying to give you space to honestly say whatever you want to say. So
it's funny because a lot of labels don't like me talking like this. I've had label when I do gigs. Maybe I did a gig at a jazz cafe for a label, and they loved the music, but they didn't like me talking. It was a few years back. Talking on the mic, was just like being a bit political, which I don't do anymore. But I was told not to do that anymore. But hey ho, you got me right at the end of the day, and I'm thinking because I've been thinking about stuff like because I've got the EP coming out and people want to hear a few things of what I've got to say. So I just thought why not talk? It's not all roses, man.
Yeah, I mean you've mentioned the broken beat scene a couple of times. Obviously you're talking about your amazing music as part of and head of SK Radicals. I mean, what was that? I mean, how you obviously have fond memories about that whole period, right?
I wish I would have enjoyed it more. I was too intense. I was intense around my best friend, which was the drummer Vic Starkey, who I love dearly. But we just got into that purely by mistake because both of us. I'm with the broken beat thing. I was going to a lot of clubs, a lot of house clubs, which I never saw any other jazz musicians go to. But I was also going to jam sessions. That's how I was learning how to play. But I was also going to a lot of clubs. So it was such a natural thing for me to fuse jazz with a kind of club culture thing, which a lot of jazz musicians don't understand club culture. It's not really cerebral. Club culture is not cerebral. Club culture is about trying to bloody heal yourself. For me, that's what club culture is.
Right.
Going out, listening to some great funk records or house music, Chicago house, or some great remixes. Having a bottle of beer and trying to chase girls. That's what I was doing back then. I wanted to become a pop producer, but having no contacts, but having quite a lot of ability with music, I produced a demo, and apparently Sony Records were interested in it for some reason.
Oh wow!
My mate Vic, who was a great drummer, helped me with beats. I was writing a lot of the music, so we were a production team. We made a beautiful neo soul demo. But we didn't get signed, which I was really shocked at because then I realised it was not about the quality of the music. It was about who you know, and we didn't know enough people. And then Sony stopped having meetings with us. Hence, I was asked to put together a band for this place called the Notting Hill Arts Club, and then someone was down there. They were impressed with the band because of we were playing sort of really quite dance grooves, because Victor is a great
Mm.
drummer of dance music, and I was playing really heavy jazz things over the top of what Vic was doing. It was we were sort of slightly ahead of our time in a kind of way, but all the inspiration was Herbie Hancock. That's what I got to say.
Right, Headhunters. And
then we would take the Headhunters, because people keep hitting me with Roy Ayers. No, it was Herbie Hancock. Herbie Hancock completely, because I loved that group, Headhunters. I've got almost every single record that group ever made with Herbie on there. And Vic loved Mike Clark and Harvey Mason, who were drumming on those records. And we just put the grooves of now, like Vic would play drum and bass grooves that I never ever heard anyone else do back then. And I'd be putting sax grooves down on the top of it. And then one of the DJs just took me down to meet Mike at Goya, and then he just gave me 500 quid just like that. It was unbelievable. We've been having meetings with Sony for almost a year. They didn't give us a bloody penny.
Wow.
And then Mike was told that I was a really good musician, but I was studying a science degree at the time, so I wasn't that good really, because I was studying in a day, playing at night. It was a crazy period. I was pushing my body to the edge. I was living off crap food. And then he just gave us 500 quid to go and make a track. Then I had to go back and make another track. And then he asked me, did I know this group called Bugs in the Attic? And I said I'd never heard of them. And he said, look, you're going to go down and take the parts down. We're going to hook you up, and what you're going to work with those guys. So me and Vic went down to, they had a studio, I think it was in Holloway back then. I could be wrong. If Daz IQ's listening, he'll probably tell me I was wrong. different area. But it's all a bit of a blur. So I just took it down because I was living off about 3-4 hours sleep a night, which I still do, which is not good.
Wow.
And we took the parts down, and I met Daz and Kaidi down there. A guy called Kaidi Tatum. I know you guys probably heard of him.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we were just, and it was such a positive vibe. You know, I'd had the two experiences. I'd had the jazz experience where you got all these jazz guys who were really very serious about what they were doing, but you know, didn't want to let me in. And then I had the Sony thing where they sort of were checking us out a little bit, and then they didn't want to bother because generally they don't know a lot about music. The jazz guys might know a lot about music, but are really anal and very protective. And the Sony guys, they're always trying to hedge their bets with if one of their friends tells them this is the next biggest thing, but they can't really hear it, so to speak. So I was caught in the middle. So the broken beat thing, they just embraced me. So we went down there, and then I hooked up with Daz and Kaidi, and it was just like a breath of fresh air, man. It was like, yeah, we'll do this, da da da. There was no like stupidness. It was yeah. We started working, and then Broken Beat blew up, and then I was offered a record deal, which is bloody amazing. You know, and I hooked up with Daz. Yeah, it was the first day in the studio. I had Kaidi on assorted instruments, just vibing out on congas, keys. I had Neville Malcolm, I think, from Incognito down there. Before he was on in Incognito, I had Vic, who's maybe the first ever Broken Beat live drummer. And who else do we have in the studio? I think it was Phil Peskett, who was Moloko and might be 07's keyboard player. That's before they all did these big heavy sessions, you know, and it was a great vibe. You know, it was it was purity. It was a pure vibe. There was none of the bloody jaded vulnerability that you get now with guys after being involved in music for 20 years, you know. So it was a really good time. I didn't enjoy it enough. I wanted us to be the best band in the world. So I used to bloody get them to rehearse too much.
Right.
I used to kill their asses. But that's the kind of intensity that I would bring to stuff because it was my music. So I wanted it played in a certain way. But, you know, but it was great times, man. I mean, you know, from where I'm from, I come from an inner city, you know, where, as I said to you, I went to a terrible school. And I left there wanting to be educated, desperate to be educated. You know, so hence I did loads of went to night school, studied music at night school, did a science degree. You know, now I work in the inner city. I always try and tell the kids, man, you know, no one's going to give you anything. You know, when I get a lot of kids coming to ask me, you know, how much do you earn as a musician, da 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 da, I tell them straight, look, it's a bloody hard game. You know, and from your background, no one's going to give you anything. You know, no one's going to give you anything at all. So you've got to really want to do this kind of thing, you know? Oh, this doesn't sound too upbeat, does it? Should I start tap dancing?
Yes, some live sax would bring it all up again. We should do that.
Live sax, hold on. I haven't got anything out.
No, honestly, no, it's okay. That's okay. Oh, well, actually, I've just turned down the chance for Sean Khan to play live sax. What am I doing?
Just wait there a second. Just wait there one minute.
Oh my gosh, that's going to be the coolest thing ever.
Just wait there 1 minute.
God,
no,
I'll
listen,
wait an hour.
Hopefully I won't get you. Say that again?
I'd wait an hour.
No. Well, no. It's all good. Listen, as I said to you, I've been warned about my previous veracity or truth, however you want to call it, by some of the people I've worked for in the past because they think I'm a bit too negative. But I think it's honesty. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't hear enough of that in even one of some of these young guys. It's sort of almost talking from a script, almost like, and they don't want to talk about how bloody tough it is. And I know it's tough for some of these kids, you know. There's less working class guys coming through now because they can't afford to play, and that's another thing that I do stress. You know, a lot of especially with closing down a lot of the colleges like Morley. I learned so much from Morley College and Goldsmiths. Now Goldsmiths don't run any courses anymore, or for subsidised courses, or Morley College doesn't run any subsidised courses. You know, all this kind of things. So people don't want to talk about that. They just want to hear about the music. But you need a fertile ground for that. Do you know what I mean? Or not? You know. So anyway, here we go. Oh. I'm very cold here. There you go. Did you hear that?
I heard it perfectly. My mouth is wide open. I can't believe it. That's probably the single greatest moment I've ever done on like all 40 of these podcasts. That's amazing.
Have you done 40?
We're up to nearly 40. I think actually no, like 34 if I remember correctly. Yeah. So yeah.
34. Well, I apologise to any of your listeners who are offended by anything I said, but I'm only talking the truth.
Yeah. Well, you've made. You've made everything right with.
Yeah, cool. No, it's all good. It's all good. You know,
no,
it's all good. I haven't played for a while, so you know, go on.
Yeah, no, well, super cool. Well, my final thing on the broken beat thing. Do you ever kind of get the urge to, I think, from a musical perspective, to kind of put the broken beat hat back on and kind of go back into a project like that?
I will. Cool. But as I said to you, I've lost about 4 or 5 records by not having anyone to put them out properly. I made a second follow up when Goya went bust, and it's such a pity that Goya did go bust because the internet really killed them off because everyone started downloading our stuff for free, and they went bust. And I made a follow up record to my first record. The money that I made with the first broken beat stuff, I was able to build a studio. And so I was able to make another record that was really quite a personal record. I played most of the instruments on there, did a lot of the singing, and I gave that record away. And it was the worst move I did. So I learned, don't give a record away to a label that's not going to appreciate what you're about. You know, so I put the broken beat thing to back of my mind for a bit, but I will go back to that at some point. After I've done this thing with BBE, I've been speaking to Daz.
Amazing.
We're more mature now. We were a bit emotional back in that day because both of us were working full on because we were getting so much work back then because the whole thing had blown up, you know. And then my band was playing quite a bit, having to rehearse for that, and Bugs were about to blow up, unbeknown to us at the time. So we were a bit stressed. But now I think, older and wiser, I definitely would like to make another broken beat record. I'd definitely like to, because, I mean, at my core, my dance music is broken beat because I'm very free with that. Broken beat for me represents freedom. You know, you're not tied to 4 on the floor, house groove. You can do that, but your next track can be like a drum and bass inspired tune. You know, that's what for me broken beat meant. It meant freedom. All the things that I'm listening to, I can just put on there, and I can make a more complex drum groove. I can tell my drummer, all right, instead of doing a drum groove over 1 bar, make it over 2 or 3 bars. You know, make a dance groove over 3 bars. You know, that's for me what broken beat was. You know, it can be as complex as you want. You know, and a little bit deeper, which suits my personality. So yeah, I'd love to go back to that. Maybe that was a bit of a long, convoluted answer.
No, it's a perfect one. No, I look forward to it. I hope it is something that you kind of go back to. It's amazing. You kind of connected those worlds amazingly well, but they're so incredibly different, the broken beat and jazz. But you kind of you did find the commonality in both of them and managed to fuse them together perfectly, so that your name is so adept at either genre. And I think it would be fascinating to hear after Slow Burner, after Muriel, after Palmer's Fantasy, to kind of go back to that kind of genre and see how you create it all again.
You've done your homework.
I'm a fan, dude. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, check out a record I made called Urban Eclectics, which I made 14 years ago.
Wow, yeah.
And it's that record, I think, is flawed because I didn't get Daz on there. Daz needed to be on that record, right? Because I'm very hard to work with because I'm so intense and I'm so clear about what I want to do. You know, I've got records in my head. I walk down the road and I can compose something. You know, how does that sound? Da 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 da. But I think I'll agree with you there. I'm going to be immodest here. I'll agree with you there. I do marry those worlds very well because essentially I understand both worlds very well. I know how to make a dance record, which jazz musicians don't know anything about. Really, about beats, what's a good groove. Because I was going to clubs from a very young age and hanging out with friends. I got a lot of friends who used to run underground clubs, weren't famous DJs, but they were playing great music. They were great DJs, like playing some great house music, playing some great dance jazz music, playing some great hip hop. I'd go to these clubs and listen to some great stuff. So it's osmotically got into me. But with the jazz, I've got such a thirst for knowledge that I was able to incorporate that world. Now, I mentioned Herbie Hancock. That's the guy who I think, for me, has been my biggest influence in terms of broken beat.
Wow.
That guy came at funk and, for me, prototype broken beat stuff with a jazz mentality. Yeah. That's the reason why it's such a deep experience when you listen to Headhunters when he's on there. And that's why I think when I made broken beat, I was coming to broken beat with a jazz mentality as well, but with a big understanding of dance genres and club dance culture. As I said, and that's why I think I was able to marry those two worlds like that and come up with something of a slightly different sound, a different edge than what the other guys were doing. Even though some great stuff, their Bugs stuff, I still love their first album. And I was actually on their last album, which coincidentally was on BBE.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was on their last album. Yeah, it was on BBE when Peter was Pete BBE was. He was. I think they were connected with Sony for a while. I think, from what I remember, or Virgin. It might have been Virgin. I can't remember, but they had some licensing deal with some major label. But yeah, that's the reason why I think I do marry those two things reasonably well. It's coming out from a similar angle to Herbie, not consciously, because obviously when I was going to clubs when I was a kid, I didn't know I was going to be making records. It was a pipe dream. I wanted to make records, but I didn't know anybody. And it was just my whole career's been luck. It's been a lot of obstacles, but it's been a lot of luck. A lot of luck.
What led you to saxophone in the first place?
Well, my mum, Irish lady, my mum, who was probably, I've got two people I've got to say quickly who have always wanted the best for me. My mum, Muriel from Ireland, she's an Irish lady, and my good mate Victor Starkey, who I love that guy, the drummer in the SK Radicals. They're the only two people in my life who've only ever wanted the best for me. The only two people who never judge me, all my craziness. I put Victor through crazy stuff, and he's always been there for me. He's always been there for me. My crazy antics, the crazy stuff I've got up to over the years, and he's always been there for me. Sir let's get back to my mum. Sorry, she forced me into playing when my local school was giving away free lessons, saxophone lessons, or clarinet. I started on clarinet, so my mum got me into playing clarinet, and then a year later, when I was 12, I started playing saxophone. Yeah,
and but there were there, like, I guess John Coltrane obviously was a huge influence for you in that regard as well.
Yeah, Coltrane's a big. Look, Coltrane's a huge influence. Alice Coltrane as well, because I love that that openness that Alice brought to the music. I would say I got serious. Look, I've done the full gamut of really dodgy, stupid jobs. Like worked in a kitchen washing pots, worked as a clerical officer, bureaucracy in social security, doing all that kind of stuff. And I knew there was more to life than doing that. And a friend of mine who was playing guitar at the time told me you should get back into playing music. And my old teacher, who was a great trumpet player, probably more of an influence on me than I really cared to think he was, because he never made a record. He had a terrible reputation as a bruiser, a fighter. He would turn up to school with black eyes. This guy was a guy called Pat Higgs, who was an incredible trumpet player, jazz trumpet player. He would just turn up to school after having a fight with someone, and he could read incredibly well. He had an incredible range, trumpet-wise. He would run the school orchestra, and you'd hear these incredible solos that he would play, and then he would get on the guitar and play like Jimi Hendrix on the guitar. So he's one of these guys that no one's ever heard of, but So anyway, after I left school, my friend said, "Look, go back and ask Pat if you can borrow a saxophone." And I told Pat that I was having a tough time at this terrible job, and he gave me a saxophone.
Wow!
And I just really got into it. I got into it. Friends of mine were going down to jams. I was going down to jams, didn't know much. But as I said to you, I've always had a thirst for knowledge. My mum had a massive appetite for reading. Not the kind of books that I read, but she was always trying to read, and always interested in people. Where are you from? What do you do? I've inherited that from her. So I've got this crazy. I don't accept my reality. I've never accepted my reality. If I was to accept my reality, all those records that you've mentioned and a few others that I've been involved with, and all the players I've worked with over the years, the broken beat scene, some of the heavy players like the Azimuth guys, Hermeto, Pete King, Jim Mullen, all these guys, Clifford Jarvis from Sun Ra, I would never have worked with them, played with them, because I've never been one to accept my reality. That's where my madness comes into play. I don't accept things, which is bad in a way, because it leads to a lot of frustration.
But it's ambition, right? It's got you the accolades that you have now.
Sorry, start it again.
It's got you like the accolades that you have now. It's got you a stunning catalogue, one of the best that UK contemporary jazz can offer.
I said you've been very kind. Thank you.
But it's the truth though. Like it's a wonderful catalogue, and I so much I want to ask you about projects from Pomeroy's Fancy and Muriel, and it's that unwavering. That decision you make, not decision, but that thing in you that doesn't let you settle. It's that thing that keeps pushing you to continue forward and power through. And I appreciate it, the frustration that must come with it, but I mean, the end result is indisputable.
Oh, you've been very kind. Honestly, I really appreciate it. No, you are. You've been very kind. I do make a lot of the people suffer around me, and I got to accept that, especially a lot of the women that I've been out with, who suffer. No, they do, because the only thing I drop things for is my daughter. because I don't want her to suffer. So I have to really work to make sure I'm bringing in enough money to give her a good life. You know, God spare her, God spare me, and you know, the mother of my daughter, and all my friends as well. You know, I was very hard with Victor, but you know, and that's the only guy that I regret being so hard with, because he was so talented. But being, as I said to Peter from BBE, being Sean Khan, it's not easy, man. It's not easy to be, because I push all the blasted time, and I've got to accept some things that I can't bend everything to my own will, you know. And as I said to you, what I've learned is that once I make the record, I've got to learn to give it up. So the idea of putting it out is not so exciting, because I can't bend the will of the gatekeepers, you know. So, you know, not everyone's going to like what I do, you know. You can hear that I haven't been to Berkeley. Strangely enough, Hermeto said to me, the reason why I like your saxophone playing is because you're not from Berkeley. You know, you can hear certain guys who go to Berkeley. I haven't got that sensibility. I've probably got more a freer sensibility from the 1970s. I probably would have been more suited to playing in the late 60s and to the mid 70s, when it was a lot of kind of hippie things. I got a hippie streak down me as well, you know, somewhere along the line, like Coltrane, you know, exploring all these things in my own kind of way. You know, I haven't really had a mentor, so to speak, even though I've learned massively off people. I learned massively off Dad's IQ, even though we had massive discussions. And even though I'm a skinny little guy, I don't back down when it comes to music. I know what I like and I know what I want to hear. So that can sometimes frustrate people that I work with, but I don't back down. Learning off Hermeto, you know, and him encouraging me a lot. The Azimuth guys, I've known them almost 10 years, and they've been so supportive of me with Facebook messages, this, that, and the other. Playing with people like Clifford Jarvis from Sunrise, that was an incredible experience for me as a kid. A guy called Becky Musaleko, I don't know if you know this guy. Maybe you don't know this guy.
No, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You have heard of him. Well, this guy was another big influence on me, purely because I was flitting. I was going out to a lot of clubs and not practicing so much. I was going to jam sessions and never really practicing. I was going out to clubs, just listening to music, and then thinking I was the musician thing, just grab the saxophone and just go out and just play a load of rubbish. I used to go down to Becky's workshop when no one else was there. He had about 2 other people there, and they were both singers from what I remember. No other instrumentalists. So he sat me down and we would just play together. Yeah, just me and him. And then I was learning a tune called Giant Steps at the time. This is a long time ago. And I could just about play it in one key. And then he just sat me down and he played it in all 12 keys, if that means anything to you guys, the listeners. It just means you're actually running the whole gamut of the instrument, which is a very difficult thing to do. And he did it at an incredible tempo. Giant Steps is one of the most difficult tunes written by Coltrane in jazz. And Becky completely destroyed it. And I came away from Becky thinking, that's the standard. That is the standard. This is why this guy's great. And this is before he was playing with Joe Henderson and all these guys. And there was no one going to his workshops apart from me for a little while. And then he invited me to come down to play with him at Ronnie Scott's, which I foolishly didn't. And I lost contact with him after that because I ended up going to too many clubs. And Sunday I was sleeping all day. So that was a real. I regret that. That was a major regret. I should have played him a lot more because he was such a warm character. Such a warm character that guy was.
When you talk about that kind of level of, I suppose, intensity or control, is that something that's restricted to just music? Or are you, if someone says, hey, where do you want to go out to eat? You're like, I don't mind. What do you want to watch? I don't mind. Or is it just music related?
No, that's listen, you just described Sean Khan now. I don't read shit. I don't shit films. I don't drink shit wine. I don't eat shit food. Anyone who knows me, all the ladies that I've had in my life, all the close friends know I can't watch. I've got an art house collection of movies that I collect. That's my passion. Is movies, films. My music. I love listening to classical music. You're talking to a kid that had an inner city education. I do go on about this because, especially a lot of people who don't know me really well, and you might be with a lady for a year or so, and she might say to you, why do you want to have the best of everything? Why shouldn't I want the best of everything? Why shouldn't I want the best of everything? Why shouldn't a guy like me go down to King's Place and listen to avant-garde classical music? Why shouldn't a guy like me want to go to have 2 degrees? Why shouldn't a guy like me want to play with the best musicians I possibly can? Why if I've got an obstacle, why can't I just jump over it and say, all right, I'm as good as you are? Why should I accept the status quo? Why should I do that? I mean, people who don't really know me personally, they might think I'm a bit crazy and but there's a rationale behind everything I do, and it's coming from my background and as I said to you, the lack of stimulation I had as a kid. I want to be overly stimulated now. So there you go. They have it. Sorry, a bit of a convoluted answer, but no, in a nutshell, I want to experience things. I want to travel. I've been all over the place. I want to play with musicians from other countries. I want to, do this. It's for some reason it's part of my own personal culture. That
I kind of realized as well that I know when it came to the Muriel album, you wrote all the lyrics to the songs, right? With Diana Martinez. I wrote
all my lyrics. Yeah. Sorry, man. You were talking. Sorry.
No, that was the point in terms of, because I think just from what you were saying about the control and of your music, not in a sort of in a negative way, but but that level of control sort of extended to the songwriting elements of your songs as well.
Well, I come to music from so many different angles. It's not just music. And this is probably why I'm at loggerheads with so many, why I don't really fit with the English jazz scene, so to speak. Because I will be influenced by someone like Roberto Bolaño, who's a Chilean writer. I don't know if you've ever heard of Roberto Bolaño. No. Or I might be influenced by a guy called Tarkovsky, the Russian director. Who might inspire me, and I might want to write a piece of music that's very minimal but very beautiful, hopefully, if I do. Or with Bolaño, I might read Bolaño, I might be inspired to go and do some practice. Reading about Coltrane, the guy was interested in so many different things. But I know my drive for being interested in different things is my background. Is the background of not being able to being a bit disenfranchised from certain things, that I needed as a child, that I didn't realise I needed until I became an adult.
Yeah. When you said sort of you don't feel sometimes you fit in like the sort of the current UK jazz scene, what is that for you? How would you describe the current UK jazz scene? I don't know if it's something that is related or not, but obviously there's that song you did, which is epic. It was called What Has Jazz Become? I mean, that's when you say you current UK jazz scene, that song comes to mind. And are your feelings on the current scene connected to a song like that at all?
Yeah, of course. I mean, for me, I just on the one hand, what we do by making music, it's superfluous. It's a bit of fluff, really, to the daily reality of a lot of people's lives. It's just it's quite indulgent. But on the other hand, it's very important to us as individuals. Yeah, and I like to explore why I play music. I like to explore the reality that I find myself involved with. I'm not going to pretend that I went to the Guildhall or Manhattan School and I'm really arrogant about this, that, or the other. I don't know, Joe Lovano as my saxophone teacher. You find a lot of guys get a lot of confidence from having a really famous teacher, but I never had any of that. So my reality is something different, and I want to show that reality. I want to express that, and it's politics, and it's film, it's gender equality at the lower level, not at the upper level. It's maybe talking about Trump properly. Who's behind Trump? Who's behind Boris? Look at the old Brexit thing. I will talk about that at the time, but I will talk about it at a level that I think makes sense to me, not at a soundbite level. I don't really do sound bites. As you said, as you quite rightly pointed out, what is jazz become, and then what is jazz before that, which is what is jazz become was the companion piece to what is jazz. I try to be as truthful to myself as I possibly can. And there you have it. Yeah, and when you're talking about the jazz scene, so to speak, when I was trying to come up, I had so many obstacles. Guys put so much nonsense in front of me because I didn't go to the Guildhall, or maybe I don't know. I mean, I'm a bit dark. They didn't like that. Probably, I don't know. I don't want to harp on about that, but now I'm becoming more comfortable with my skin. Becoming more comfortable that I have got a reputation as a serious player, but it's been a long process of cultivation because I could have got there sooner, but I've had to have a discography as proof, not only to myself but to them, that what I've tried to put together is slightly different, no less worthy, but slightly different, and I have got my own way of looking at the world. Which jazz used to be like that in the 60s and 70s and 50s. Now it's through one myopic institutional eyeglass, so to speak, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, I guess you're talking about sort of like, is that a reference sort of the education system where kids are coming out from?
Yeah, I mean, like, for instance, you need 40 grand to go to a jazz college, Guildhall, Royal Academy or Manhattan School in New York. And they come out very competitive. They come out like incredible, like they're on steroids, some of these kids, with the techniques and all this kind of stuff, They've had mentors to become very technical, but it's controlling the aesthetic of the music. And I don't feel that's where art lies. I think what an artist is, and this is right across the board. Doesn't matter if they're a jazz musician or a filmmaker or a painter. What an artist is someone. It's what you know and what you don't know, and they're equally important. And what schools tend to not focus on some of the most important things, like maybe understanding the historical and social context of what you're doing. It's all focused on technical things, so to speak. There's a few guys that I quite like, but I'm not an authority. So maybe me talking to you like this, maybe they could counter what I'm saying, but then that's where the dialogue should happen, but it never does, really, does it? Because, as I said, it only goes through the filter of the gatekeeper, Yeah, and it's funny. It's too deep for the listeners. Sorry, guys.
No, it's not. It really isn't. It really isn't. No. It isn't. It's as I said, yours is certainly a respected and worthy opinion. It's unfortunate, I think, that being music just can't be this. I've made something beautiful and that's the end of it. There's always so much around it, and like you say, the industry being how it's evolved. brings up these new feelings and emotions that we have to deal with as an artist trying to make their way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but I'm just my point about what I do is that I try to be multifaceted, look at many different disciplines in my own way. Obviously, my main discipline is music, and that's where I put almost 80% of my energy. But osmotically, I'm trying to take in as much as I can. Like I said, you're talking about dance music, the way I'm able to jump between the two and know what a good groove is, know what a good programming is, because there's plenty of programmers who can't program it, I don't think. But what Broken Beat did, it was so much more difficult music to program, and that's why so many good programmers came out of it. And I was surrounded by all those guys, and I know what a good programmer is. Whereas somebody who doesn't know that well won't know a tinny beat from an incredible dance groove that you can really get down to. So as I said, I try to expose myself to as many different influences as possible. Hey ho. I'm digressing a bit. You will probably want to talk more about the music and some of the records.
No, but I think well, it's funny. Well, okay, I'll combine both things. From what you said about sort of being multifaceted and trying new things, yeah. I think it has meant that you've never really made the same record twice. Any record that you've made, it's almost like a clean slate. It's not necessarily a continuation of the project that you had before. I think when Palmer's Fantasy came out, I wrote a review for our blueandgreenradio.com site, and I think I tagged you in it last year when I put it out, and I probably paternalistically I wrote that Palmer's Fantasy was probably the album that you'd always wanted to make. Was that something that was inaccurate? Was I 2 albums or 3 albums and an EP out with that, or was that somewhat correct at the time?
Well, I'll be honest with you. The album that I always want to make is the next one. That makes sense.
Of course,
you understand what I mean?
Well, yeah, I guess it's the thing you haven't done. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't got much swagger. I haven't got much bravado. I've been told I need to play the game more, and I should front out a bit. I haven't got any time for that. I make one record, and I'm not going to swagger it about and expect things. You do expect a certain amount of respect, but hey ho, it is what it is. I am always thinking, I'm hyperactive, so I'm always thinking, what can I do? What were the flaws in that record? Where do I want to go now? I worked with Ivan Conte Mamau on that Palmer's Fantasy record with Hermeto Pasquale, and speaking to Ivan and playing with Ivan, I felt, I feel that I'd like to explore that 70s vibe again, maybe at some point, and that's a record that I've got in my head, but maybe I won't be able to make it because obviously I'm not able to have the output I want to have out. That's probably the most frustrating thing. Having these ideas, and I could record 2 records a year easily with the amount of ideas I've got.
Wow.
But no, I have to accept that, the position I'm in, that's the way it is. So in the back of my head, I'd like to explore that a little bit more and maybe extend that a little bit more. But, as I said to you, I don't like standing still. I like exploring things. I'm very, very curious. Very, very curious musically. Etc. You're right. Yeah, and I think that's a sort of an unconscious, conscious decision to go in different directions. Because my biggest influence probably in terms of the way he made records is Miles. Yeah, Davis. That's probably the biggest influence I've got. No. I mean, the guy changed every 2 or 3 years.
Absolutely.
Now you've got to change much sooner because you won't be able to make as many records like those guys could back in the day. There was more labels, there's a bit more money about. So every time you make a record, you've got to make sure you leave blood on it. Yeah, what I mean by blood on it, you give it all you got, you know. And he was always changing his way of looking at the world. I mean, the guy was again multi interested in multi different things. You know, he had multifacets. He was into art. He was into film. He was into Western avant-garde classical music, where you can get a lot of ideas from. Bitches Brew. You know, what was that record about? That record was about him listening to Stockhausen in his mansion and slowly going insane, you know, and that's what you can hear off Bitches Brew. I think it's an amazing record. It's a reflection of who he was at the time, you know. So, you know, and then Live Evil with Hamato. I think Live Evil was after Bitches Brew. It was a companion record to you know, that's a very dark record.
Yes.
You know, that honesty I love about Miles. That honesty, absolute commitment to you know. I mean, it didn't make him a nice guy, but he knew how to make a living. He knew how to deal with record companies, which is not easy. You know, that's another reason why I admire him. But I admire him for just wanting to explore different territories. I can't, you know, you know, what the point of me regurgitating the same record I'd made, the first one I made, when will we belong? Yeah, you know, there'll be no evolution in that. I want to evolve as a person and as a musician. You know,
you look back at the catalog that you've had so far. I know you, like you said, you always look to the next project, but when you have those moments where you stop and look back and say, "Blimey, I've done pretty well." Like in terms of the music that you've put out, you must have a sense of incredible pride about those projects.
I sometimes do. I sometimes reminisce too much about the broken beat era. I mean, that again was driven with stupid, petty rivalries that were stupid, really. You know, because we're human beings, and we can, you know. But it was a lot of fondness. I really like Mike and Spence. They gave me a chance. You know, when a lot of guys wouldn't give me a chance. Man, I couldn't even get a teaching gig, and I couldn't even get a gig at the local bloody jazz club until Mike and Spence came along and gave me a chance to explore my musical ability. You know, they saw a talent there that maybe other guys were trying to block out or didn't see. You know, and then suddenly I was getting work all the time. You know, and that's what was the catalyst to me becoming a professional musician. You know, so that doesn't always happen for a lot of great guys, equally as great or as good as me. You know, yeah, and I do look back on fondness with it. Yeah, it was crazy. It was mad. You know, giving a record deal to a crazy guy like me. You know,
it's yeah. I honestly, yeah, it is an incredible catalog, and obviously they saw absolutely the correct thing, and what you've gone on to put out is. You know, as a part of SK Radicals, as a part of SK Solo, it's a wonderful catalog, and obviously you've got the EP that's due out in like an hour and a half, less than that, which I'll be purchasing as soon as it comes out.
You're a star.
Yeah, no, dude, no, a fan. But it's, as you say, it's like, yeah, you got to support, because that's what it's where things fell down, really, isn't it? So
yeah, it is. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
very important.
So yeah, super excited about Distant Voice. But as I think I mentioned when we initially made contact about these podcasts tend to end with a closing song. So it's something for you to pick, whether you can pick something from Distant Voice, you can pick something from SK Radicals, anything from the 3 solo albums, something you're a fan of, Herbie Hancock, Miles Davis, anything at all that you kind of want to pick.
That's very difficult. I thought about this. I thought about maybe there's a tune I wrote called Fragile Cosmic Girl. I don't know if you know that tune, off a record I made called Urban Eclectics. It's my least known record because...
Yes, SK Radical tune.
Yeah, SK Radical tune.
Yeah.
Doesn't get played a lot, but that record... I did almost everything on that record. Keyboards, vocals. There's a couple of vocal tracks that I got friends to sing on. I did. So you can either do that or the actual original of Troubled Times. So I did a remix with Bugs in the Attic that track, Troubled Times. But you could play the original of that or the original of Fragile Cosmic Girl. You make the choice, because that record taught me how to actually use Logic properly, the software, because I had very little help, so I had to get into the program to work out how to make that record. So I learned a lot from that record. That's why that record's quite close to my heart. But it's my least known record.
Well, that's absolutely the one we should go with.
Yeah.
You're right. It is a wonderful record. Absolutely, you've got to pick that one, which we'll do right now. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to have invaded your evening, your precious unwind time and everything.
No, don't worry, man. Listen, it is what it is. I know that I'm a bit intense. I've had a long day. But it doesn't matter. It's nice to speak to you because you're very knowledgeable. You've listened to music. You know the right records. Hey, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I hope it's something we get to do again sometime as well. I really do appreciate your time.
Well, yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. I mean, God spare me. I finished the new one for BBE, and then we can have another chat again.
Definitely.
And maybe we won't go off piece so much.
We can go anywhere. It was any time that if I ever get a chance to do this with you again, it's always going to be whatever you want it to be. And if where your head was at today, it's totally cool.
Or whatever. But we can talk again at some point.
That would be amazing. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Real fans. So I've wanted to do this for quite a long time, so I'm happy that we kind of had this time.
All right. You've been a pleasure to talk to you, man. No problem.
Thank you, dude. Thank you. All the very, very best. I hope everything goes well with the release tomorrow.
Thank you very much, man. Thanks very much.
Cheers, thank you.
There is a complication.